So you can see this particular motorist who was frustrated he didn't get the green light, almost jumped out of traffic right there. But this is the case in point, is that why would to access the major trauma center, Cottage Hospital, would you have to get off the freeway going south, go under it, and then get back on the freeway going north? Here's what we do. We get back on the freeway going north, and then we're going to exit at Pueblo Street in order to access the hospital. Back in the 80s, Caltrans wanted to improve the Las Positas northbound off-ramp intersection. Many of the people who've lived in Santa Barbara a long time will remember that there was a stop sign at the end of the off-ramp, and it was a hook ramp that came into here at Calle Real. Caltrans wanted to eliminate that, and so they made Calle Real one way. But unfortunately, what that did is it limited access for people coming from the north to the hospital. And now there's a lot of cut-throughs in the neighborhood, mainly on Talent Road.
What happens when you have traffic coming through is it pushes you back in your house. You spend less time out gardening. If you have a conversation with a neighbor across the street, it's a shouting match because of the traffic. It's just not a healthy thing. And the shame of that is that this is just a fabulous neighborhood.
And activity in the area has increased even more since Cottage Hospital began its seismic compliance and modernization project. As part of this project, other locations were evaluated as potential sites for relocating the hospital. But in the end, it was decided that the hospital would stay in the spot it has been in since it first opened in 1888.
Given the situation here in the existing transportation network, this is probably not the ideal spot to build a new hospital. However, the hospital is here, and the facilities are here to support the hospital, so we're going to make do with what we have.
When Cottage came before the city with the modernization project, we did an environmental impact report and found that the access to the hospital is lacking. The levels of service, the congestion levels are too high and unacceptable for city standards and the quality of life of Santa Barbans.
The hospital gave $250,000 to the city to investigate ways to improve access to neighborhoods and the hospital.
Some of the feedback that we received our previous...
So the city used that money to hire transportation consultant IBI Group. IBI has helped with the process of Phase 1, which is developing the circulation options report, but they didn't do it alone.
So we really wanted to go to the public, have a couple of public workshops, also talk to the various stakeholders of Caltrans and SBCAG, also MTD, and also we went to the Planning Commission and Transportation Circulation Committee as well for feedback.
There were also public workshops. All stakeholders were encouraged to participate, including the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments.
The city made us aware that as part of their project in working with the hospital that they got some funding to do a traffic study, and so we became involved in that with city staff.
So what are the options? The community explored a broad range from the small to the large. Eventually, options for improving access were broken down into 3 different packages. The first option would include a new freeway overcrossing at Pueblo Street, in addition to local street improvements, extending two-way traffic on De La Vina, and extending the one-way couplet on Castillo and Bath Street to Pueblo. Another option is the Las Positas interchange reconfiguration, with the same local street improvements. Another alternative is combining alternatives 1 and 2. In the end, there was a general consensus that reconfiguring the Las Positas interchange would be the best option.
The alternative that the community really liked was a new hook off-ramp at the Earl Warren Showgrounds that would accompany the existing northbound hook off-ramp. In that way, we'll be able to remove the off-ramp that goes to Las Positas now in the northbound direction and turn Calle Real back to two-way traffic, which is the key piece that the community really liked and also improves access to Cottage Hospital from the north.
Everyone felt had the least amount of overall impacts. It was also the one that seemed to be the least expensive.
Improving pedestrian and bicycle access was also taken into consideration. There was a general consensus around adding street improvements, like extending two-way traffic on De La Vina and extending the one-way couplet on Castillo Street and Bath Street to Pueblo. After all feedback on these options are received, including comments from the PC and TCC, IBI Group will further refine the draft to make a more complete report. It will then go to City Council for review this summer. The findings from the Circulation Options Report will feed into the Project Study Report, which is needed for the second phase of the study in order to pursue project funding.
There's not going to be money available in the immediate future for building these facilities, but we need to be prepared for when Caltrans goes through their next round of funding to have the studies in our hand to support the option that we prefer.
Although making access improvements takes years of planning, the city says it will all be worth it in the long run.
Santa Barbara expects a very high quality of life here. We have a big challenge, but at the end of the day, what we want to come out with is a city that's levels of service at those intersections emulate what the community expects, so that motorists can have a better experience in Santa Barbara.
When all is said and done, Oak Park and San Marcan residents are hoping to see significant relief from traffic and a healthier, more livable neighborhood.
Well, I hope to reacquaint myself with my neighbors. You know, I feel like I haven't done a good job on that lately, but again, it's because of the traffic. And I understand it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but you know, I love this neighborhood. That's why we've been here for so long. I'd like to see a solution to that thing that restores some of the tranquility and the community back to my local area of Santa Barbara.
And you're invited to participate in the joint PC-TCC meeting on June 11th in the David Gebhard Public Meeting Room, where the options report will be presented. With the committee's approval, it will then be forwarded to City Council. Well, up next, we take you to another project in the city that also focuses on easier access. City TV's photojournalist Jeff Goodwin shows us how this street is now much safer for all users of the roadway.
Good things come to those who wait, and in this case, the improvements and renovations made to the bike lanes and walkways under the 101 freeway at Mission Street between Carrillo and Modoc have been well worth the wait.
This is an area that has been identified by the accessibility community and the bicycle advocacy community as an area that people have avoided in the past because of the lack of bike lanes, because of the lack of access ramps.
The project was created in 1999 as part of the 101 Congestion Management Program through a Transportation Enhancement Grant via Santa Barbara County Association of Government and Caltrans. 10 years ago, state law was changed to give more authority to regional agencies like SB-CAG for transportation funding.
I think you see a lot more projects that are community-oriented, that are sensitive to the neighborhoods, that are important to the community and the people of Santa Barbara, rather than something that Sacramento thinks is appropriate for our community, and that's a big improvement.
Improvements in the Cabrillo Mission Modoc area were identified by the city's deficiency plan, created to find ways to alleviate traffic congestion and concerns for public safety.
Because there were so few ways to get from the west side to the east side and from the east side to the west side, it's one of the areas that people have been traveling under without feeling comfortable because of the lack of sidewalk and bike lanes. We think more people will come to Mission to cross because it may be more convenient for their travels than are doing so now.
Pedestrian areas have enhanced ramps. These ramps, new sidewalks, wider sidewalks, street lights, traffic signal modifications, curbs and gutters, retaining walls, native plant landscaping improves visibility and area aesthetics.
Public Works is involved in many projects that create easier access and safer biking and walking lanes throughout Santa Barbara.
We've got quite a few sidewalk projects underway that have similar amenities, the improvement of the access ramps and a sidewalk separated from the traffic, and they should be underway over the next 6 months or so. The one I'm thinking of in particular is the Carrillo Hill sidewalk project.
For more information on the Mission Street bike lanes, go to our website, that's citytv18.com. Well, the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Prevention Teen Coalition says that 91% of teens in Santa Barbara admit that home is the #1 place to obtain and consume alcohol. Well, thanks to an ordinance passed by City Council in August of 2008, providing alcohol to teens comes with some stiff penalties. It's called the Social Host Ordinance, and it holds people responsible for allowing underage drinking in their home. It's all the ingredients for a party. Music, friends, and sometimes booze. If you're 21 or older, that's okay since it's legal. But for those who are under 21, it's a whole different story. Yet in spite of being illegal, according to a national survey, nearly a third of all 8th graders today have tried alcohol, and a quarter of 12th graders report being drunk in the last 30 days. And how they get to the alcohol has been the center of controversy. It has become accepted by some parents that throwing parties for their underage children and their friends is okay.
I think some adults, they just don't know how to say no. Or like they're just afraid that their kid's gonna go out and like get hurt somewhere else.
But some adults disagree with this kind of reasoning.
And what a lot of adults say is, well, kids are going to do it anyway. Well, they certainly are if that's our attitude. You know, we need to change our conversation. We need to change our expectations.
That change has already started in the city of Santa Barbara with the Social Host Ordinance. Passed by City Council in August 2008, it is a law that holds people responsible for allowing underage drinking on their property. A host in violation is defined as any person who allows or hosts a party where alcoholic beverages are in the possession of or are being consumed by any minor.
When the police arrive, if they can establish that there's minors inside the apartment or the residential house or the private property, then reports generated, and then that's sent to the city, and then they receive a bill. Even if they're gone, they should have known, they should have taken some sort of reasonable cause to have known they're going to get hit with that fine.
Violators can opt out of paying the fine and instead attend alcohol education counseling.
I have had some friends back in the past that have gotten into accidents. I've heard stories about my mom back then saying that she drank one time and when she was young, and she was with a person drinking in the car and they got in an accident. And so from what I learned about it is that there's a certain point of where you got to feel that, you know what, there's certain things that's not right. And when you're drinking, you're not going to be okay. Alcohol leads to endangerment and leads to violence.
Violence, only one of the many consequences of early alcohol use.
There's a whole range from the more minor to the completely heartbreaking and tragic. When youth drink before the age of 15, they're 4 times more likely to have a problem with addiction or dependence in their lifetime. It can ruin your life. It can really take a toll not just on you, but on everyone who cares about you. Kids do all kinds of things they wouldn't otherwise do when they've been drinking. Unintended sex, driving in a car. And we know now that the brain is developing until age 25. So what alcohol does is it shuts down portions of the brain at the very time when the brain is developing.
Ask anyone who has seen what happens to the brain when drinking starts at an early age. Like 16-year-old Janine Terrell, who is currently going through counseling for alcohol and drug abuse.
We saw like brain scans of like people who've been drinking for a long time, like since they were young, and like how it messed up your frontal lobe, which is like the part of your brain that stops you when you're trying to make a decision, to make you think of like, you know, realistic consequences of everything, and like how like that part becomes impaired and you like become worse at like, you become more reckless pretty much, and your liver obviously and your heart, everything gets a lot worse. It made me kind of sad because I thought of like my family members who are all like been drinking for years now, and like that's probably what their insides look like. And then it made me think like, do I want that to happen to me?
Janine shared with me the toll alcohol and drug use have had on her.
I used to be like a perfect student, like always like perfect grades and always perfect attendance and always like a teacher's pet, like that kind of person. And then like when I started using drugs and alcohol, like I sort of changed.